Hey there, and welcome to Business Over Cocktails. I'm Lauren Najar, your host and hype woman, bringing you real talk about entrepreneurship. This is the podcast where we dive into the bold whys, the messy middles, and the game-changing aha moments that lead to success. You'll hear unfiltered stories from entrepreneurs, plus bite-sized solo episodes inside the Business Chaser series, where we cut through the noise and get straight to what actually drives sales, visibility, and growth. So whether you're here to get fired up or finally feel seen in your business journey, pull up a seat, pour your favorite drink, and let's have a real conversation. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Business Over Cocktails. I'm Lauren Najar, and today I have Dr. Santina Wheat with me. And this is going to be a very good conversation and so relevant to so many people across the industry, across the board, all industries. So Tina Wheat is a family physician educator. She is also a career and life coach, and she helps healthcare workers conquer their chaos and get to calm. But the topics that she talks about are a lot about burnout and boundaries and just getting to your soul's purpose. So this conversation is going to be relevant to literally everybody, I feel. I've had Tina on my Instagram before. We've talked about these things, and I know it's spoken to people that just aren't in the healthcare space. So I'm excited to dive into more of this. So thank you, Tina, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So can you take us back? You're still you're still in medicine, you're still in the field itself, and you have this career and life coaching business. So can you take us back? Why did you originally get into the medical field?
Into the medical field. Wow, that is one from when I was very little. I was one of those people that when I was 5 said I was going to be a doctor.
I love that.
And that really has never changed for me. So it has really been something that has been true to me. I also experienced a lot of healthcare in my family when I was younger. I was raised by my mom and her sister was diagnosed with breast cancer at a fairly young age and had some challenges with healthcare where she wasn't really listened to and wasn't taken seriously. And unfortunately, from diagnosis to the time that she died was only about 6 months. So I just sort of went through this roller coaster. And I walked out of that saying, I want to be the type of doctor that listens to her patients. I want to be the type of doctor that is really there for them. And so from all of that, I really found that if I wanted to take care of an entire family, if I really wanted to listen to a family, that brought me to the field that I'm in because I get to really do it all and be there for everyone.
I love that. I love that when you were a little girl, that's how you said, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. So my niece is 5 and she keeps, they do the first day of school, boards, people take pictures of their kids the first day of school. She, for the last 2 years, it has said doctor on it. And I feel right now, I feel like she's just a natural born leader, and she is always the person that volunteers in class and is going to be the straight A student of the class. And so I feel like of course that might change, but I feel like she just, every time you ask her, she says doctor. So that's really cool because you don't hear that often. It's yes, I knew what I wanted to do when I was 5. That's so cool. So I wanted to know then, from your journey and in the medical field, why, or I guess when did you or how did you experience burnout?
So I think that those things that I just told you carried through my life, right? I really wanted to be there for everyone. And that is a great thing, but it's also not a great thing if you don't learn how to do that in a way that you protect yourself. And so I thought that I had to climb the ladder really quickly. I thought that I had to show up for my patients in every way possible. And I do still think those things. I just think about them differently now. I had some family illnesses. My dad was really sick and then passed. And then my mom was really sick and then passed. And then we had little children. And I just kept going. I never really took a break in that time. And my husband also works in a career that is fairly high pressure and was going a lot. And so we just sort of would say that we have a busy household. And I was somewhat raised to believe that you just work really hard. My parents both had two jobs their entire lives, and so that was normal to me. I don't mind the idea of a really hard work ethic. And so working 70 or 80 hours a week, which was pretty much my norm, felt like is what it was supposed to be. In all of that, though, I was always fearful of wasting my vacation days, for example, because what if I got sick? Because I think I had these health challenges in our family and I was always worried about something going. I was worried about this idea that I wasn't going to be protected in some way, that I wouldn't have the FMLA, that I wouldn't have the vacation days. And I let that sort of get in the way. And then the pandemic happened too. And when the pandemic happened, that fear that I just described was even harder. And so I just took every shift and was like, well, I just have to work because if I get COVID, I might be out for 3 weeks. Or if one of my kids gets COVID, then we might be out for 3 weeks. And so it just sort of added into this, I have to show up all the time. I have to be there all the time. And the idea of taking a break at home just did never sat well with me. I'm not that person. I needed to go away and do something. And so that all added up. And in that time, I didn't learn how to share responsibility. I didn't learn how to delegate things. And I took everything that people would say personally, even if it wasn't for me. So all of those things are a horrible, horrible combination. And I was that person also that just didn't believe in coaching, actually. I didn't believe that something could help me like that. I absolutely believed in therapy. I did therapy after my mom died. It wasn't that I was opposed to managing mental health. I just did not identify with this possibility of burnout or that something besides just leadership skills could be helpful. And then I started getting all of these ads that were like, you should leave medicine and go to real estate, or you need to diversify your income because if you don't do that, then you're always going to be caught up. And at the same time, the organization I was working with was changing, and I felt very loyal to the mission, but didn't feel like I was still doing what I enjoyed. I no longer felt like I was getting to show up for my patients the way that I wanted to or how I wanted to. I wasn't showing up for my learners in the ways that I wanted to, and life was just constantly changing. So all of those things going on at the same time without time to sort of take care of myself and to pull back, something just had to change. And when I finally acknowledged that was when I finally realized that I was in burnout. I didn't actually acknowledge that I was in it probably for over a year. And now that I look back, I'm sort of like, how could I have not realized that? But I think it's common. Many of us just think that you're supposed to keep going. You're supposed to feel exhausted at the end of the day, especially when you have little children. And it can be better. It really can.
There's so many things that you said that I know that I resonate with and that I know that a lot of my clients have experienced too. I think just, growing up in a time, I grew up in a household too that hard work equated money and reward. And so I think that was the rise of the steel mills too, right? My whole entire dad's side of my family worked in the steel mills in Northwest Indiana. And, he worked there. He started as one of the shift workers, in the actual steel mill itself. And my mom would always tell me that he would come home, it would be shift work, right? So midnights and picking up extra shifts. And he would come home and be super dirty. And she would never let him hold me because he was always so dirty. But that just that's how I grew up. It was also too, I remember when I got my first job, I worked at McDonald's. And my parents would get mad at me if I thought I needed to call off because I was sick. And I think COVID kind of changed that for a lot of us that oh yeah, we're not supposed to go into work when we're sick. I think all of my jobs that I've ever had, they always were you were looked down upon if you had to call off sick. And unless I had a fever or I was throwing up, I would always go into work. And then now I'm thinking about it, it's oh yeah, when I sleep and I don't do anything, when I have a cold, I'm only sick for say 4 or 5 days. When I was going to work, I'd be sick for weeks. I'd be sick for 2 or 3 weeks. And so I think just as a society, I think so many people resonate with that because we think we have to put everyone else first. It's like people pleasing too. Like we have to go to the jobs. We have to listen to our parents. We don't want our bosses to think we're bad workers. Like we don't want them to think we're lying because we're sick. Like that's how I was too. Like I don't think I ever reserved vacation days, but I definitely wouldn't call off because of that. I would go into work and I would feel awful. I worked even during like my first round of cancer treatments. I never called off. I worked through that because I was worried too of like I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to do that. And I wasn't like throwing up or like super sick or anything, but I definitely needed to, like, I just felt like I needed to work. I didn't think that me needing FMLA was required. And so I went to work because I didn't want to, like, lose my job and become, like, a bad worker. I think people were taking it lightly, I guess.
Well, and I recently started sharing this with my learners, the like epitome of me being really bad at this. And to clarify, the reason why this was such a deal for me was my vacation and sick time was all the same. And so if I
Yeah.
took sick time or if I took vacation, that meant I didn't have it for the sick. But I was in office caring for patients on a Saturday as I was miscarrying. Like I have this core memory that I will never, ever forget. And there's so much that happens with like health issues that happen in our individual lives and how people respond to them. But I have this core feeling of I'm sitting here taking care of somebody else when I probably needed to be at home with my husband. And that's that's why I say when I look back at it, it's like, oh, that's not something I should have been doing. That wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily that wasn't anybody's expectation of me, but I thought that that was so part of who I was that I had to be showing up that way. And so it was sort of the epitome of not taking care of myself.
Oh, that's rough. And I love what you just said there too of like that was the expectation I put on myself. And, you know, while like, I definitely worked in a toxic place, and I think that I would have probably been in that situation as well, like, I went to work sick, I went to work, like, losing my voice, coughing, like, I probably got other people sick, and I was client facing, so, like, I saw a lot of clients all day long, and my boss was very toxic, and so she was definitely the epitome of, like, "Oh, you're not sick, you need to come in," kind of person, but, like, at the same time, like, yes, we're listening to that person and we are doing people pleasing, but we're also like, that's the expectation of ourselves too. And I love that you said that because I definitely had that expectation of myself that like, no, I can't call off or no, I can't. I want to be a good worker. I want to show up. I want to be dependable. I want all these things. And so I think like that also speaks to a lot of high performers then. Why do you think boundaries are so hard for high performers?
I think that you just started to touch on one of them. One of them that sort of spreads throughout is the people pleasing aspect. Many of us have learned that in order to do well, we have to make other people happy with us. And it's that if we show up, that maybe they'll give us the good project, or maybe we will be up for that promotion, or maybe you'll get that sale. Whatever it is, I think that we learn that if we do something nice for other people and we meet their expectations, then it's going to serve us in the long run. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes there's other pieces to it. We think that also if we are working very hard, if we're working a lot of hours, then that is the equivalent of being successful. And so if you say, I'm going to work till 12 p.m., then you might be like, oh, I've gotten all those things in, and look how much I accomplished. Some of us know, though, that when we do that, we stop performing well. And so it doesn't actually help us. Like, of course, there's times where I still feel like I need to put in late work because I need to do something else for my kids. But in reality, that is a different boundary. It's that, like, I have decided that I'm using this time to get something done so that I can prioritize my kids. And so I think that we have been conditioned to some sort of success by showing up for other people. I even feel like I was taught at one point that you should always say yes to certain people. Like, I think I've actually had mentors say that to me because you're just supposed to accept whatever they give you so that they're more likely to bring you along. And obviously, there's a level of toxicity in that relationship right there. But I think that we have learned that that's what we're supposed to do. And then also, it is uncomfortable for most of us, maybe not most of us, for someone like me to say no to somebody else. Sometimes it's just about not wanting to have that difficult conversation, whether it's that you think you're going to be letting them down, whether it's that you think you're going to have someone be mad at you, or whether you're going to say no and they're going to say, oh, well, I need you to do it anyhow. So I think that there's this fear of just how do you have that conversation? So many other things I can go into, but I feel like there are so many individual mindset blocks that we have that make boundaries feel uncomfortable until we shift how we think about them.
hmm The one thing that you said about like making the conscious choice to do some work late at night because you've done something for your kids. I think like before I became a mom and I was building this business that I have now while juggling my 9 to 5. And COVID gave me the opportunity to like, obviously, I worked from home every day and never had to go back in the office, left that job before everyone was reporting back to the office. So like for 2 years, I was at home. And I, at that point in my business, I was like, oh, cool, I have more time. However, there were obviously obligations during the day where I would have calls for my day job and have to do those things as well. But I think like for a very long time, and I think maybe even a little bit still, this like the coaching industry as a whole or just like the online space, you are either like there's only two categories. There's you have to be flowy and set up boundaries and no people pleasing and say no and put yourself first 24/7 and everyone's kind of like beneath you, right? Or then it's like okay, you're working hard, you're hustle hustle hustle, but I don't like either of those. And I feel like hustling's easy to me, right? Like I work hard. I know I work hard, but I know that that's not sustainable. And so like that's something I wish I knew earlier before I became a mom because I learned now that I'm a mom, like I obviously naturally you have to do things that are not just like oh, I have this time to work. Oh, no, no, no. Your kid might be sick. You have appointments. You have stuff. Like, it's okay if you need to work until 11 p.m. as long as you're not doing it where it's affecting your health and boundaries or whatever it is. Like, you're consciously making that decision. And that literally was a mindset shift I had probably over the last year that I had to really work at because, again, I wish I knew that 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because I feel like I would be so much further in my business because I listened to all the people that were telling me, no, you shouldn't work weekends. You shouldn't work a Saturday. You shouldn't work after 5. You shouldn't work first thing in the morning. You should meditate and journal and do all these things, but it's just not realistic. And so I love that you said that because, like, yes, boundaries are important. And yes, it's important to like notice your own cues and clues with burnout, but also you have to do what you still have to do. Like this isn't just like flowy, like wonderful, everything's easy all the time.
And what it really comes back to, at least for me and the way that I think about it, is intentionality so that I can be strategic and not reactive. Because when I can really think through what is it that I have to accomplish? What is it that I need to do to show up for my family this week? When I can think through both of those things, then I can hold space for both of those things. And it absolutely does not look like an 8 to 5 for me. That will never be my life. But it can't because I have children that sometimes have a competition where they need to show up at 7 in the morning. Or maybe we find out about the school event 3 days beforehand. Society isn't always does not make it easy for parents to plan. And so I think that it's really about giving you that space to be able to be reflective and strategic as opposed to reacting in the moment because that's when you're not able to hold your boundary, when you're not able to think about it.
out of all the boundaries you've kind of put in place in your life, what do you think has changed your life the most with boundaries?
This is going to sound super silly because it's the simplest one. The boundary that changed my life the most was putting do not disturb on my phone. And
Mm.
I have it automatically set for do not disturb starting at like 9:15 and it goes until 6 a.m. And I have breakthroughs. So like if my husband's not home, he can break through. Now that my older kid has a phone, if she's away, she can break through. But you have to like intentionally push through. And the reason why this was so meaningful was twofold. One was I was getting phone calls that were coming in those hours that were not actually emergencies, and so they were impacting my ability to sleep. They were making it seem like I was always available 24 hours a day, which I need to be for my job, but only for true emergencies. It's not like you can call me and just talk about anything at midnight.
Right.
Um, but which is sort of what was happening. So I that really helped. And the second piece about it was something that was really small and simple. And all of a sudden I was enjoying bedtime. I wasn't getting phone calls during bedtime with my kids because people noticed it and actually stopped calling me a little bit earlier. So it wasn't just the 9:15 or whatever it is. I was sleeping better because I wasn't getting not just the phone calls, but like the random messages that come through that aren't urgent were waking me up. And so I wasn't getting woken up in the middle of the night anymore. And then finally, it taught me that something simple could make a big difference. And so once I was able to do that and see the success of it, it allowed me to think through, okay, what other things can I hold true? It just sort of allowed me to go past that idea of all boundaries are bad, which is definitely what I thought when I first started being a leader at my job.
So I had a story about putting up a boundary with somebody recently, and I had never done this thing before. And I had so much guilt, but it was something that I also knew I needed to do. And I told somebody no, just like with my capacity, and they wanted me to do something. And I was just like, no, I'm sorry. I cannot do that now. And if I were to rewind even just maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago for sure, that would have been, I would have been offering to do the thing, like without them even asking me. And they asked, and they actually asked multiple times. And actually there's two instances where that happened. And I just said, "No, I'm sorry. I can't. I can't do that. I can't do that to myself. I can't overextend myself. I can't keep giving the grace that I'm giving. I can't do that." But like finally something in me has been like, "Okay, like that boundary is set," but like I still felt this immense guilt because again, I want everyone to be happy. And maybe it's still people pleasing coming into play, but I want to help people. I want people to get their results or, make their lives better, whatever that is. So, like in those situations, at least for me, or like maybe you experience that too, like how do you handle that guilt even when you're saying no?
So, I personally have had to shift my way of thinking about what it then means for me to show up. And I think that you said something really important in that story is that your capacity was full. And when your capacity is full, you're not going to show up the best for them anyhow. You're not going to deliver what you want. And if I could like fast forward it, then you might deliver something that you weren't as happy about or that didn't meet the needs to the best of your ability. And then you would have been frustrated with yourself in that setting, probably, knowing what I know of you so far. And that's something that I experience too. Like, if I don't do my best job for someone, then I feel really disappointed in myself. And I go through, like, how could I have done that differently? And it creates this whole other spiral that's just not helpful or necessary for everyone. And so I, I really do share with people that I don't think that I'm in a place or a season at the time where I could do a good job for them. And what I've started doing to try to relieve my guilt of them not getting help is provide other folks when I know them that could potentially help them instead. So I try to recommend someone else, or I try to say, I don't think I could help you, but have you considered looking in this place to find someone else so that I'm not just leaving them hanging? And I'm sure that there's some people that might feel like that's also too much. Like you mentioned before, some people feel like you should just have boundaries and say no. And I'm not totally that person. I still want to make sure people feel supported. So I would just offer them the either have you gone and talked to this person, or when I'm thinking of this, I look in this space, or I've seen other people advertising this. And so I try to provide something that's not me in that space to decrease my own guilt.
hmm And that goes back to it being intentional too, right? Because it would be reactive just to say yes to everything. And I think like being intentional about it, what it is, like what, again, like what your goals are, and like how do I want to show up and how do I want to contribute to this person's life, regardless of how you're helping them. If it's like that means taking on another client, or like how you like show up for them. So that makes that was a little piece of advice I needed to take, of like thinking about it that way, of like, yeah, like if I'm being reactive to everyone and I have such a huge client load, like I'm going to be reactive to everybody. And then that decreases the client experience, that decreases the results I could probably, give people across the board, not just to that person, but to everyone that I'm helping. And so, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then I think, again, that's just being more intentional. Like when you're asked questions, or I actually just had something happen, like in the DM, someone local messaged me if I wanted to donate and be a sponsor of some event. And it was so unclear. I had no idea what they were talking about, but they were asking for money. And I don't also have a good relationship with them. I don't really know this person. And I said, can you tell me more? And I had to ask like 5 different questions, because it sounded like something I'd be interested in, but like, I'm not just going to say yes because
Right.
you live by me. And so I think like that has to happen in all of these situations where you have to be more intentional about like, what do you truly want? So I want to switch to then your coaching business, because we've been talking about like burnout and stuff. But other than, the obvious is like, yes, you're in the medical field and your coaching business, you help healthcare professionals. Why healthcare professionals though, other than the fact you work in this field?
Honestly, there's two reasons. Yes, of course, it's because I'm here and I understand the stresses. And so it's something that I can really relate to. I am saddened right now by some of the services that are out there that are encouraging people to leave medicine. We started talking about how I came into the idea of wanting to be a physician from the time that I was 5. I really feel like for me, this is a calling. And for someone that is in medicine because it's a calling, it feels horrible to be told, oh, well, you won't be happy if you stay here. Now, not everybody thinks that medicine is a calling, and that's okay. Everybody can approach it differently. But I want people to know that there are ways to change how you interact. There's ways to change how you lead. There's ways to change how you choose the position that you're going to take that can impact how happy you are. And it's not just about what you do when you show up at work. It's also about what you do when you show up at home, and that those things are so intertwined. If I'm getting phone calls during the day that my kid hates me, then I'm not going to show up my best at work. If I can put in the time with her or both of them and make sure that they know that I'm dedicated to them and also that my work is important, then all of us are happier. And so I really want to show up in this field that I think is important. I think that we have this crisis in healthcare right now where I'm worried about there being enough physicians. Worried about there being enough nurse practitioners and PAs, that it's not an easy place right now. And there needs to be real systematic change. But even despite that, there's things that we can do on the individual level to take care of ourselves, to advocate for change in the system that can still make us feel more satisfied and fulfilled and calm in what we are doing every day. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean I wouldn't be willing to support someone who is in another high profession or high stress profession. It's really just about anyone who feels like they are feeling stressed in their job and at home, which is a lot of us. There's techniques that we can use that help each of us. I just love medicine because it's what I was called to and want other people to feel that way.
What are the signs that you've seen if someone is in like deep burnout and they don't realize it yet?
One of the most interesting ones is the snapping. Sometimes people will say that they snap at their family members or that they snap at their patients. And sometimes when people are able to step away from it and reflect about it, they will say, I couldn't stop it. I just snapped and it was like I was watching myself do it and I couldn't stop it. And so that really goes back to that point of you don't have the capacity to be intentional. You are just reactive and responsive. I think that's one of the biggest ones is that you're just feeling reactive at all times. There's also so many physical signs that we see people have where they wake up and they are still exhausted and they maybe feel the pains all throughout their body and they've had all the medical tests and everything are normal. They have no desire to go to work, where they're just dreading it every day. And it's this thing that they used to really believe in. And there's also the pieces that sort of go along. It gets confusing with depression and anxiety at the same time. But there's these other pieces where you're just sort of spinning and feeling like you're never good enough in all of those spaces too. And so it looks a little bit different for everyone. There are stages of burnout. Some people talk about 12 stages of burnout that are increasingly worse. But ultimately, it comes down to being more reactive, feeling more apathetic than you were before, and really coming down to not having that purpose anymore, which is why I really choose to focus first for most people on what their purpose is to determine if it's even the right place to be.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, I feel, because I think when I first heard that term burnout was definitely as I was entering the coaching space. And I think like I again equated hard work to doing a lot of work and working all of the time. And so like I don't think burnout was ever a word that was ever mentioned or like in my vocabulary, not even like 7 years ago. And so like when I started in the space, like I started seeing people talk about burnout. And to me, burnout just meant like exhaustion, like ending up in the hospital. But and yeah, that's probably the 12th stage of burnout, but I experienced something in 2019 and I had tried to like build my business. I had a lot of early success when I started my business in 2018. I signed a bunch of clients. Then I hired a new coach and then she wanted my business to be like completely different and I trusted her because I saw that she was making a bunch of money. And so like I went into this like crazy launch cycle where I was like sending out a million emails, posting a million times a day, talking to a bunch of people. And I was doing that on my lunch break at work. I was doing that after work. And I just like hit this wall. I signed 0 clients from doing all of this work. Nothing happened. No one was interested in this program I created. And, then I had a random day off during the week and I was already like meeting up with someone. And I just like, and I rather would have gone to like a Chicago Cubs game with my husband because we were living in the city. We didn't have kids. It was just something to do like during the week. We were both off. And I remember having a physical feeling of like, I don't want to do this anymore. And why am I building this business when I'm literally working in all my free time? Like, yes, I had a full-time job, but like, and I commuted and it was a crazy commute. And so like, why am I doing this? And I remember like, again, like retrospect, I'm like, I think that was burnout. I think that because I remember thinking it was just such a physical response that I felt like I just kind of like mentally and physically collapsed. And I didn't pass out or anything, but I just like, man, like that's an interesting thing. And I still remember that feeling. And so like that also like talks about like misalignment too, of like how you want to approach things and misalignment in your purpose and your business, which that's something you really do talk about. Okay, so before we go, I have a couple quick little rapid fire questions for you. And then you can tell everyone where to find you and all the things. What is a boundary you fiercely protect right now?
I fiercely protect my sleep. I'm getting older and sleep is so important.
I love that. I think I need to take a note of that. What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Oh, I have so many, but the easiest that I can do most often is reading a really good book. My daughter tells me that the genre I read is fantasy, or no, romantasy, excuse me.
Oh,
So that is the favorite genre. It allows me to escape.
wait, what book are you reading now?
I have to restart one. I just finished a trilogy, so it's time for me to start a new one.
What's one thing you wish more women knew in healthcare sooner?
That you don't have to say yes to everyone.
That's a good one. Okay, tell us where we can find you and how to work with you.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of easy ways to find me. My website is my name. So www.santinawheat, SANTINAWHEAT.com. And then I can be found on Instagram, and my handle is at Dr. Tina Wheat. And then if you're interested in videos, I have YouTube videos, and it is Chaos to Calm is my channel.
Thank you so much for coming on here and having this very, I think, always timely conversation because everyone experiences this. I know everyone experiences this. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Over Cocktails, where real stories and bold business moves come to life. If this episode lit something up in you, share it with a friend, tag me at Lauren Najar or the podcast page at Business Over Cocktails. Make sure to leave a quick review as well. It helps more than you know. Until next time, keep chasing what matters and building the business that feels like you. Cheers!